I probably don't need to say this, but in this profession, it's a valuable skill to be able to look at the big picture of things and then start to break it down. So, why shouldn't we use that skill when telling a story? Let's take a look at the story we already have and try and do it big picture style and then break it down. We do that by chunking. And what is chunking? Well, they say that there are overall two kinds of writers or storytellers. One is the pantser, the one who writes by the seat of their pants. They just start and then they go wherever they feel that the story takes them. That's not the one we're going to lean into here. The other one is the planner, the one who plans it out, starts everything out with figuring out where everything goes, and only then starts to actually create something. We're leaning more in this direction. In reality, though, they're both the same, just with little tweaks to it. It's called a draft. You write out everything that you're thinking of, the best way you can put it together, then you look at it, and then you do it all over again, making it fit better. But we're going to do it by chunking. Chunking means taking the biggest possible chunks of the story first, and then breaking those down into smaller chunks. We already have the overall idea of the story, so we know where the chunks are going. But now, let's try and look at the biggest practical chunks to use. We're going to chunk by location, meaning every chunk is what happens in a certain location. Once the story changes location, there's another chunk. The first chunk is when they arrive in the town. We're following Jeffrey and Lewis at this point. Likely, this is where they meet up. Future roommates. Then the chunk moves to their dorms, where they find the room that they're going to inhabit for the next while, and they meet various people. They get an overall idea of the student body, about personalities and feuds and issues, possibilities. So we got the town figured out, we got the students figured out. Now it's about starting to figure out the campus. We start by them being told to go to the administration building to get their papers in order. That's the major parts of the plot. Go from A to B. So they go out, and the next chunk is the open area by their dorms, the thing that separates their dorms from the campus. Some small challenges, some encounters, probably a lot of their new classmates trying to rush to the administration building too. After all, Jeffrey and Lewis are not the only ones who need to get their paperwork in order. Next chunk is the disaster area, when part of a building tears open and huge monstrosities fighting each other burst out, causing havoc, creating a path of destruction wherever they go. And now the story has gone into action. They need to survive. They need to deal with the sudden danger around them, as does everybody else. Campus security shows up, everything is chaos, screaming, and there's no way to get through. So the next chunk becomes them going into the building to find a way around this mess. This is probably the main chunk. This is where a lot of things are going to happen. This is where there is going to be a lot of panic and rescues. This is where they're going to meet Joanna. And this is going to be where they find out why these monstrosities are tearing apart campus. Once that's done, what's the next chunk? The next chunk is when they get to the administrational building and find out that they need something to complete their paperwork. And that is something that they need to get from a person who was caught up in all the mayhem and is now hospitalized. So they need to get through the whole hospital security and get to this person and get their information. So we have the chunk at the administration, we have the chunk at the hospital, even though the hospital building is pretty much the same building as the administrational building. And then when they get that, they go back to the administrational building and they deal with bureaucracy, and then they finally get their paperwork in order. End of story. So those are the major chunks. In order to continue, we need to break them down. Location chunks can be broken down into event chunks. They don't need to go that way. This is just the way I'm going to do it because it seems to fit the story. You have them going from location to location. In each location, events occur. We break it down into those events. And finally, once we know what events occur, we can break it down into action chunks, which are the actions that characters, mostly the main characters, take during these events. From there on, it should be small enough that each chunk can simply be written based on a quick note about what's going on. So this is how we create the story.